All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Best Self Blueprint. So, as you all know, the mission of this podcast is to bring on people with the knowledge, insights, and experiences that help you move that dial towards becoming the best version of yourself, whatever that means to you. So, this past weekend, me and the two gentlemen sitting next to me took part in a 24-hour workout. That is not exaggerated. It was 24 hours in the gym doing a circuit hosted by Tony Medaglia, who we have had requested to come back on by many people, and then Collin Stolpa making his first appearance. So Tony hosted this event. Quick shout out to Lifetime Fitness in Brookfield for letting us just camp out for 24 hours on treadmills. But since Tony hosted it, I'll let him explain what it was and the reasoning behind doing a 24-hour workout.
Yeah, so for what you already know and what you've known through like all of our past experience with like Legendary Fitness, we do a lot of like kind of compromised workouts in a way. So like cardio exercises, whether it's total body work, simple weights, or just mobility type movements, and then just kind of going bouncing back and forth to test your endurance, but also get some strength-based focus. Now, this, on the other hand, was meant specifically for the endurance, but I mean, you've done this with me as well. We've pushed you at some capacity, but this was a whole different level of using a physical workout to test your mental strength as well. So not necessarily like one time through the workout wouldn't be that bad, but going over and over again until you hit that wall and then try to keep going. It's trying to break those barriers down.
Yeah. So let's get into it. So really, the reason for having you guys on here was more or less just to talk about our experience with it.
Yeah.
We actually did have one person, shout out to Mark, came out the gate strong, but I think that really like showed how difficult this was mentally, because Mark physically was rocking it. He was doing more than 1 lap per hour, which was kind of our like gold standard, if you will. Tony did 1 lap an hour plus 1 because that's just who he is. But at around the 15 or 16 hour mark on the 15-hour mark, you could tell he just like his mentality completely shifted, and he ended up packing up and heading out. No disrespect to him, he killed it. He got 17 laps in 15 hours, but it really, at least for me, that was the point that showed me like, okay, this is pretty insane what we're doing. Like a guy who is extremely physically fit, who did have a very like steady mental game going into it, just like out of nowhere kind of broke.
Yeah. Well, plus you got to think too. So that 15-hour mark, because we started at noon on Friday, that's at like 3 a.m.
Right? Yeah. So like for me, I'll start by talking about like when I hit my wall and then what that experience kind of felt like after, and then I'll let you guys do the same. So for me, there was a little bit of, I wouldn't call it a wall, it was more of like a fence. Short fence that it was easy to hop over at around the 9 or 10 hour mark. So after 9 laps of doing it, 10 laps of doing it. And then the real wall hit right around 13 or 14 laps in. So at that 14-hour mark. And for me, what happened was I had to shift very quickly from thinking about it in terms of the end result to thinking about it as, and you heard me probably say this 200 times after this, just do one more exercise. Like, do the exercise. Am I dead? No. Am I passed out? No. All right, do one more exercise. And I just kept filtering through that for 9 hours. So
I think we each had that phrase, because I know that you definitely heard me a bunch too, where I was like, just get started. Just get started.
Yeah. Kind of embrace the suck, if you will. For me, it was always just, all right, get this one done, move to the next. Like, this will eventually end and there will be a completion to this. We just have to keep working and getting there. And one workout after the next to finally be, hey, we can close the book on this 24 hours later, 20 hours later, and be done. So very challenging.
You were the one that worked a full work day and then showed up to 20 hours.
I remember sending him a Snapchat at what was probably noon.
Here, we'll have you sneak over a little bit because you're getting cut off.
All right.
We can see like your nose and your mouth.
I got a big nose, so
Collin, everybody.
So I remember, so I had to work a full work day. You sent me a Snapchat at like noon. You're like, we're only missing you, man. I'm like, I can get out of here about like 3:30ish. I'll meet you there at 4. And showed up, and I was a little unprepared. I will say that. I only brought one change of clothes and not a lot of food with me. And then after I think about 4 of the circuits through, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be more of a challenge than I thought it was gonna be. This is, if we're gonna go for the full, finish it till the next day with you guys, I gotta make sure I have food with me. I gotta go get clothes. I didn't go get clothes, but
You got food.
I got food, and then I got some protein powder or protein bars, some protein through some beef jerky, which is always kind of like a good one to go through, gummy bears, and then energy drinks. I'm like,
Yeah.
"All right, this is how we
Energy
stick this
drinks are
out."
We did need that extra guy.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But yeah, and that, so like, before we even really start like breaking this down, why did you guys decide to do this? Because for me, like, people have heard me say this enough on here. I just know the importance of testing your limits and trying to see what you really are capable of, because I think, unfortunately, nowadays, it's way too common for people to hit what I call like cruising altitude, where they get to a point where they're like tolerant of their ability
Mhm.
and they just kind of level out and stay there and hope that they don't go back down.
Right.
But I think it's so important to just keep like, we put glass ceilings on too much of our life. And so for me, it's important to keep trying to shatter that glass and see like what the ceiling actually is. Now, to the point where like you are still saying safe, obviously, but like
Yeah.
what, especially you as like the person who put this on, what was your reason? Like, what was your why going into it? And then did that why like sustain you through it, or did your why shift as you were going through?
That's a good question. Biggest thing was kind of like how you mentioned the ceiling is a lot of times I feel like I'm progressing with my fitness, progressing with my health and everything like that, but I don't know what else I could do. So having that, whether it's once every 2 months, once every 3 months, just like do something that you thought was impossible just to see how close you can get. So like one of my mindsets, and I think I said this on my last episode, was that I set overreaching goals. That way if I come up short, then like I'm happy with it.
Mhm.
So my 25 rounds was my overreaching goal. This was the first time I ever actually hit that overreaching goal. But then outside of, I'm gonna set this shoot for the moon type of goal, and then if I come up short, I'm happy with it, and now I know what my limits are or what I'm capable of. Every other workout feels easy after this. Like that's the other thing. Like yesterday, I went 5% of an incline with a 50-pound rec bag, because I'm doing my rec bag this next week, for 45 minutes, and it felt like nothing. Which you put extra 50 pounds on your shoulders and go for 45 minutes on an incline, it's gonna feel like crap. But like I was perfectly fine afterwards.
I almost equate it to like, after I take a road trip and I'm spending that much time in the car, if I have to like drive down the street for something, it feels like nothing. And even if I have to like drive like an hour away, it feels like nothing. And I feel like that was one of the gifts that this gave us, was like, now if you're in the gym for an hour or even like a couple hours, it feels so short.
Yes.
So, and then, okay, so going into it, your why was that whole adage of like, just shoot as far as you can with the goal and see how close you can get to it.
Yep.
What was your like why, or what was your driving force post wall?
So post wall, it was probably around that like 15 round mark. I think that's when I ended up taking my second shower, which was a great thing as to why we did it here, was the fact that we could shower, cool off, mentally, physically reset and everything like that. That was huge major help. But once I hit that 15 rounds, like I hit a different drive. I know you hit a lane in a different.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
You went to a whole different world
about
at that point. But for me, it was, I am so close to this goal and I can actually see it attainable. I will be mad at myself if I don't get it. Like that was what pushed me through that last 10 rounds.
Yeah, it shifted from like a vision to an actual like cementing possible reality. But you have to.
It went from fun, this is crazy, why are we doing this? Let's have a blast, let's listen to some music, let's just see what happens, to I can actually do what I thought I couldn't do. I'm gonna make this happen.
Yeah, man, that, I mean, like, I think that especially in the last, let's say 5 to 7 rounds, we all kind of hit that like sobering reality of like, holy crap, we're actually closing in on this, but holy crap, we're actually feeling the last 17 hours of life. And I think it was really cool to have, just, at least this is what I experienced, like seeing both of you struggle. And if you saw my post about it, you probably saw what I wrote, but like knowing how much I was struggling and knowing that I was not going to quit because I felt it was like a tripod at that point. Like if one of the legs got kicked out, it was going to be chaos. But also looking at you two both struggling, and I almost equate it to like when people say namaste, like the God in me sees the God in you kind of thing, where it was like, I get you, like you're not going to quit, I'm not going to quit. So let's just keep inching forward, because that's really all we could do at that point.
Well, both of you had said this at some point too. I know you said it on a comment too. Like, if it wasn't us three because of the vibe, the personality, and like the relationship that we have, I would not have been able to do this on my own. No,
Yeah.
100%.
One, that's something that we've all talked about too, is this wasn't like a sanctioned event. It wasn't a race. There's no medal waiting for you, no prize money, no nothing. And so it really came down to integrity, right? We're like, if you quit, no one will give a fuck. Like, no one will care. And you guys were both suffering through it. So if I were to drop out, you'd be like, yeah, I know what he was going through. That makes perfect sense.
Right. It was awful.
But it was that integrity aspect of, I knew this was going to suck going into it, and it sucks. So like, what else was I expecting was going to happen?
Right.
So we might as well keep pushing. So for you, I'm really curious, because you have never done,
No,
like the longest race you've done was the 100 obstacle marathon or an ultra.
I did a 50K back in, was it October of 2020?
So was that what, 5-6 hours, something like that?
I finished it in 5 hours and 15 minutes, I think.
Yeah, but with how much training?
I trained about 2.5 months for it. So I was doing like long runs every Saturday, and pushing that 20 mile plus kind of, just going up through Milwaukee, taking it straight north on the Oak Leaf Trail. But yeah, that was.
Okay, so for you, the longest you've ever like exercised in one clean burst
I'd
was
say 6
5,
hours.
6 hours.
6 hours for the first marathon that we did at the
100 obstacle.
for the King Arthur.
Oh,
Yeah.
So
That
for
was-
you, I'm
yes.
really curious, because like, at least like for me, I've done that 24-hour relay. So I kind of had a taste of, although it was a relay and I got a lot longer rest periods, that mental aspect of it, but having no idea, like really what you were getting into, like what was your experience with this? Because I think when you just don't know what the hell's going on, and then you get thrown into something like that, that's gotta be
The Lions Den, yeah.
Yeah.
So in full transparency, I went into this kind of with no expectations, kind of just like, this is going to be, 4 times longer than anything I've ever done. Like, just go in, clear mind, and just let it happen. See where I go. If I don't complete the full day of it, then I don't complete the full day of it. But I'm not gonna not let myself at least try to get there. I didn't want to go into it with, I'm gonna try and hit this stride at this mark and this stride at this mark. It was fully just, let me try this out, see what comes my way, and try and get through it. And that's kind of where it was. So like I was saying, what you were saying before, with like my longest ever like physical feat before was that 6 hour mark. And now I'm trying to go that, ended up going 20 miles,
4x,
20 hours. It was definitely, I went into it no expectations, just like, things are gonna come my way, and it's how I cross that bridge to get past that. This sucks. All right, I know this stuff will eventually end. I just got to get to the end of that. This sucks part. That was a lot of me. That was the one thing that kept on going through my head at that 15 hour, 16 hour, 17 hour mark was, this will eventually end. We will close the book on this. The marathon does have a finish line. This obstacle does have a finish line. You just got to get to it. Another page in the book, and then eventually you'll get there. And that's kind of the one mentality thing that just kept me going was, we'll finish this. Just got to keep taking that one extra workout, that one extra incline, the one extra burpee, the one extra wall set. You start counting down how many you want to do. So that was my kind of these initial thought process going into it. My why I wanted to do this was because I've only done that 6 hour before. And I'm like, I wanted to do the 4x4x48. That was one kind of goal that I do want to set for myself. I wanted to do it last year. Obviously injury stopped that, but I've done the 2 with you that you've done. And I was like, this is so cool. I want to be able to do this. I want to try and go that, over the night, really try and see a full endurance, multiple hours where you are fighting sleep. And that was always kind of something that I wanted to try. And so I went to the expectation of, I want to see what it's like to fight sleep during a workout, and then also just kind of have no expectations and just take whatever comes my way, so.
I will tell you this right now. This, what we did, makes the 4x4x48 look like the bunny hill. Like,
Easily.
Yeah.
So
Have you done one or two of them?
the 48s,
Yeah.
2 of them. So the first
Yeah.
one, you both, I mean, didn't train for it, didn't have the right nutrition, wasn't wearing running shoes for
I
a
did the
running
last
challenge.
night with you and you still tried to run it. I was like, no.
Yeah. And that was just a gong
Lesson
show.
learned.
So this last one, I prepped for it really hard. Nutrition was good. And I actually I felt really good towards the end. So I ended up tacking on 2 miles and doing a clean 50, which just felt like a nice middle finger to the challenge itself
Right.
after the last time. One thing that I always think about after I do stuff like this is like, what was the lesson in it? Because I feel like, yes, obviously just it's badass, right? Like you get to kind of like pound your chest a little bit and
Right.
flex, but like really at the end of the day, ego aspects aside, there's a lot of really valuable lessons I feel like first of all, in just suffering. Like I think allowing yourself to willingly suffer for the gold nugget that's going to come on the other end of it. Also, the aspect of the lesson that comes from like pushing your limits like that. So for me, I'd say the 3 biggest lessons, one, and so we'll dive into, you made a comment about I would possess that.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is something that I've learned about a natural strength that I seem to have, which is the more I get attacked, the more focused I seem to get. So this shaman that I know, who was actually on an episode earlier, we were at his house and he was running us through like our spirit totems of like the animals, and he let us know like what one animal we identified as, and at first I'm like, oh, tiger for sure. Like, and he didn't say tiger, he said bear, and I was like, man, I don't look like a bear, I don't feel like a bear. Like I do bear crawls, that's as close as it gets. I'm not a bear.
You got a hair chest.
And that's true, that helps. And he said, with the bear, the more in a fight, the more injured it gets, the stronger it gets.
Okay.
And I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense. The more injured you get, obviously, the worse you're going to get. And then we did this 24-hour challenge, and I think it was around the 17-hour mark, something just clicked, and I was like,
Yes.
nothing else mattered to me other than as soon as the start of the circuit began, all I cared about was ripping through it as fast as possible.
And you definitely did that.
And it like, I feel like I was going faster in the last 6 than any other point in that challenge.
100%. Yeah.
And it really was something that taught me like, it's a cool thing to know that when you're in adversity and when you're in suffering, when it comes down to fight or flight, like at a visceral level, I have fight. And that's to me a really cool lesson to learn.
Yeah.
But I think the other aspect too was like, you had to surrender thinking about the outcome and just be in like the present and be in the process of it. And to me, that's such an adage to life itself, because we're so focused on, especially us 3, like big goals, big aspirations, big ambitions. But it's so easy to get caught up in like the shiny aspect of the outcome, that you don't just sit with where you're at and enjoy it. Now, I wasn't enjoying where I was at, but like as soon as I switched from, okay, we've got 15 hours, we've got 14 hours to what's the next exercise, and just being in it, it made the experience way more light, and it really taught me the importance of presence. So for you guys, like, were there any big takeaways aside from just, I freaking did that?
So before I get into that, the one thing I was telling him too was that like out of all the time that I've known you, I have never seen that side of you.
Yeah.
And so it was inspirational for 1, but 2, I was like, okay, so as soon as I saw you had that gave me, and I think I gave you a little bit too, like that drive to be like, if he's getting to that point, I need to just hunker down and go. Yeah. The biggest thing for me, kind of like talking about what was the longest that we had done before in a workout. My longest run before this was a marathon I did 4 years ago, and I hit my wall at 20 miles walked and I was like, this is crap. I needed this, like all the negative thoughts just kind of like seeped in from there. But then the other thing too is that every year on my birthday, you know this tradition, I do a 1 mile time trial. That was 3 weeks before this. So for the last 3 months, I've been working on speed work. I have not done any endurance. Like my longest run was maybe 6 or 7 miles. And I ended up running 50 miles during this. So for me to understand that like physical preparation to mental strength can bridge that gap to that extreme was like, I need to go more based off of my feel, less off of, okay, here's my plan, here's my structure, this is what I'm going to do for my workouts. If I could do more without realizing it, just go off of the effort. So I'm going to completely flip my training style now based on effort versus like, okay, this is the time I want to hit for my 5K. This is how fast I want to run a savage race or something like that. I need to just go off of like, okay, effort level was that an 8 out of 10? Was that a 5 out of 10? And then just train from there.
Yeah, dude, something that you just said is like, I've always like jokingly told people who ask like why I do the stuff I do, like whether it's like the solo climb or road trips or stuff like this. I always like say like, oh, well, I'm stupid and naive enough to believe I can do it. And then I just don't give myself another option.
Yeah.
And I think that's not what you're saying, but it's me like almost joking to avoid like the real answer, which is like, people don't want to hear what you just said. Like your mind is so much stronger than you give it credit for.
Yeah.
And like, people just don't want me to be the one to tell them like, you're limiting yourself and I'm not.
Yeah. So there's a actual, I don't know if it's a syndrome or a condition or something like that, but there is an actual like personality trait, for example, where once you succeed so much, you force yourself to come back down because you don't allow yourself to be as successful as you think you can. Like you feel like you need to be humble before you can just let that rise.
Yeah.
And that's something I've definitely felt over the years, but having the random moments like this, whether it's every 2 months, every 3 months, to be like, okay, stop that, cut it out, just go.
Well, yeah, that's like imposter syndrome for a lot of
That's what I was
people.
gonna say. It's kind of like, what do you call imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
If I gotten too good at this, you ever get like that feeling, or is it like you get too far along with something, you reach such an echelon of like success that you have to take it back and almost give yourself an ego check to be like, is this where I should be?
Yep, exactly.
That's where I just think of it similar to you, where it's like, okay, I usually put the feelers out. Like I've talked with both of you about the next big challenge that I want to do, aside from the 24-hour race coming up, is that triathlon challenge. And I've talked about it with people who have done Ironmans, people who are in the ultra space, and they all say I'm crazy. And I'm like, yeah, but let's find out if we can do it. Like no one's tried it. How do we know it's not possible? And so like going back to the limiter comment, it's not that we don't have limits. It's that I think the much more rare breed is the people who actually try to find their limit instead of actively trying to stay comfortably within their limit. But for you, what was your, like, aside from, again, just, okay, that's what a 20-hour workout feels like what were some of your big takeaways?
So obviously the big takeaway, so kind of want to circle back, but I remember it was that like 17 hour, that 16, 17 hour, where like I saw something and you just kind of click, you put some horse blinders on, and you just decided to go. And there's this thing called like a flow state, if you will, where you are able to just kind of lock in, just focus, kind of almost tunnel vision, and know that, all right, this is what I got to do. This is how I got to get from point A to point B. And I just have to get there. You zone out, you just let whatever thoughts kind of in your head just kind of mellow out, and you start going through the motions. And then you just stay hard at it, you keep going. And that's kind of what I saw kind of click into you, is that flow state. And I know like during these marathon runs or like these long endurance races that I do, there's a point where you just kind of, you zoom out, you zone out, and you're like, okay, I just did 6 miles, I just did 7 miles, and I don't know where that just went. It's kind of like when you're driving home from work and you take the same turns, you stop at the same lights, and then you get home and you're like, how did I get home again? Yeah, it's kind of like that flow state. And like I saw you kind of click into that, and you just started taking off. I'm like, all right, that's kind of one thing that I want to try and be able to always have that I can do, is just kind of click into that flow state and do whatever I have to do to just work through it. And yeah, that's kind of like what that's one big thing that I took away from this, is when you get to that super, even 10 hours into it, 12 hours into it, you kind of just have to put those blinders on and just kind of go. And then once you get to the end, you're like, how did I get there? Oh yeah, it's the same route that I take home from work every day. You zone out, you get in that flow state. And so having that 20 hours was, I want to say the last kind of 4 or 5 hours of it, I definitely tried to click into that and just like, all right, I got to do this. Anything else that's going on in the world around me right now, I don't care. I just have to complete this and get it done with. And it's going to hurt, it's going to suck, and I will get through that. You have to kind of embrace it. But that was challenging more than it has been in any other like endurance thing that I've done before. So that's one major takeaway that I've taken from this. Another one was nutrition. And then bring more than just one change of clothes when you're doing one of these 24-hour things. I would have liked to shower maybe a couple more times, but yeah, it was at least for the mental aspect of it, it was clicking into that flow state to just go and do the workouts and make sure that I'm doing them correctly. And then I'm proud of myself of it every single time that I'm doing them, and I feel that I'm doing them to completion. But yeah, that was my big takeaway. And then obviously just insane that we did this, and that's super cool. But
yeah. So it makes me think of, have you guys seen that show Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, good. So in that show, the Avatar has this like Avatar state where he kind of blacks out and then like just becomes this like overpowered beast mode human.
Uses his own.
And like that to me was almost what that felt like, where it was like I would, as soon as I hit the treadmill for the start of the round, I would almost like not black out, but go on total autopilot.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the round, once I got done with the farmer's carries and I set them down, Trevor came back and I was like, all right, let's take a beat. And I would just sit and rest and eat whatever my body would let me at that point. And then as soon as it was go time again, I'd not blackout, but we'll say like gray out, fog out.
Yeah, it's that same thing when you drive home from work, you're driving home from the grocery store. You just I don't know, there's probably a scientific term for it, but it's that you go through the motions of things, and then once you get to the end of it, you're like, oh, how did I get there? Do I remember stopping at that stoplight? Do I remember doing those burpees? I don't remember that stuff. So yeah, how about you? Did you kind of go into any kind of flow states of anything where you zoned in and went?
The toughest thing, which I think kind of held me back from finding that as often as I would have liked, was the fact that I was also hosting. So there was a good amount of this workout where like people would jump in and people would leave, and I would have to make sure like, hey, what did you think? Do you need any help? Do you have any questions? So I was never, besides that like 3 to 5 a.m. I should say. Yeah. We all hit that point where we were just like, just need to go. There's nobody else here. People are gonna start coming to the gym at some point, so we'll get some new energy and we'll be fine after that. But like the majority of the time, I would say I was basically trying to make sure everybody was okay while I was going through the motions. So I could never actually hit that flow state until it was like the last 2 hours, I would say.
Yeah. Probably the weirdest thing to me, because like Legendary, small gym, Body by Design, small gym, like space wise and population wise. So when I'm usually doing these workout challenges at those gyms, I'm in my own world. But at a place like Lifetime, we had a lot of people watching us and pointing at us and cheering us on. And it was like so cool, but so intimidating, because then like you get to the end and you're like, okay, now there's probably upwards of 50 people in this gym that know what we're doing and they're watching us. Even if not, like, there were people who were literally just standing around watching us, but there were also people who would be exercising and then come watch us and then talk about it and come up and say something to us and
maybe do a circuit of their
Yeah.
So if you want to go full logistics, I mean, basically we were in the middle of where all the studios were for the studio classes. And then also, mind you, Shannon, he taught the GTX class on that Saturday morning. So like 4 hours before we're like done with everything, and actually had his class do our workout. So at one point we had 15 people doing the workout, but in and out in the 24 hours, we had over 30, 35 people that did.
It was cool to see the amount of people that came through. And then even towards the end of it, a lot of people were just coming up to us and congratulating us. And we're like, well, we still got another couple hours of this.
And shoot, we even had like 3 or 4 people that did some on Friday, left, went home to sleep, and then came back on Saturday morning.
that to me is like, and for people watching, You do not have to go out and do a 24-hour workout. That's the first moral of the story here. Like that. But my thing is like, there's two things that I'm gonna ask of everyone who's listening. One, pick something, like Tony said, that you truly believe is impossible for you, but a human being has done it before. Now, the thing with that is it has to actually excite you. So like, if climbing Mount Everest is what you would consider impossible for you, but you have zero interest in it, maybe don't try to climb Mount Everest, but figure out like what your Everest is, figure out how long it would real life take you to get ready for it, and then go after it, no excuses. The second thing is, I guarantee you have at least one friend who's crazy like us. Cheer them on, support them, tell them good job, tell them congratulations, because what I've found really like adds the jimmies on the ice cream, if you will, to experiences like this is when I do have that support from friends, family, you know, clients reaching out, when people actually accredit you for like going after your dream or going after a big goal, it makes it, first of all, it does make it a little more fulfilling because you get that outside voice telling you, but also it just shows them that you're actually watching and you actually care about them and you actually support them. So like, for example, I know someone who just went out and did a 10K today. She crushed it. And it was as simple as just texting saying, hey, congratulations, you killed it. Goes such a long way. So like that for me, again, as intimidating as it was having as many people around just like staring at us at the end, and then people coming up and asking us questions and doing all that, it was really cool to see like, okay, objectively speaking, like this is pretty freaking cool.
Yeah,
It's not just us kind of in our own heads playing make-believe. Like people are acknowledging that this is
Recognized by.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that to me was really freaking cool. But what I'm curious about, because you guys know I've got that next up for me is the 24-hour race. What's next for each of you?
So you've kind of, I've talked to you about this. I haven't necessarily talked to you about this as much, but OCR Worlds last year was my pinnacle moment for OCR. So putting myself in that category of, I was fourth in my age group for every event that I did at Worlds. Now granted, COVID, not that many people can show up compared to what Worlds has been in the past, but I was at that mark. I was almost on a podium at a world championship type of race. So for me, it's, I need to push my limits. I need to train like I'm a professional athlete, like I'm getting paid, like people want to talk to me, like I can get on TV, like I can get sponsorships. I need to train like that and flip that mindset and accept that I can do that because I've proven that I'm within capability of being able to do it.
Dude, you just touched on something that like is so freaking powerful. And I've done my best to switch my mindset over, which is like, once I get to this spot, I'll act like I'm at that spot.
Yeah.
But I feel like such a powerful, like, if you want to talk like law of attraction type stuff, like if you truly do act, move, talk like you're in the situation you want to be in, you're a hell of a lot more likely to get there than if you don't.
Right.
And that's something that I've done with business, with sports, with relationships, with what have you, is just like, because the thing is like, if you know what your ideal looks like, you might as well just do it now, as opposed to like waiting for it to come to you and then start like living it. So I like that.
Yep.
What's next?
My next thing, all right, so I actually have to figure out what's next. This 20-hour thing for me was definitely, I'm glad I did it. I will say this, so obviously coming back from an Achilles tear, I was very kind of on the edge of what can I do? Where can my body, like, where is the ability that I can still push this? Very scary, very like, I don't want to try and push it. I don't want to tear it again. Going through that injury sucks. So I was very hesitant to try and sign up for races this year, like looking to eventually getting back into running. What would my first event kind of be? So going into that, this 24-hour thing and being able to complete that completely blew those doors off, and like the fear of like having to deal with this injury like that feeling of being scared of it is totally gone now. So I'm gonna start looking into doing some more races this year, because from what I was able to just accomplish right there, took away any kind of like, am I gonna be able to run through this? Is it gonna tear again? Am I not gonna be able to finish a race because it's just gonna injure me out? Like, is it worth my time to go and try and sign up for races in, June, July, or August because because this is still causing me issues? But being able to complete this circuit was completely just all doors off. So now I actually was talking to a friend today, earlier this morning, about doing a Savage race, or doing the frontliner.
Savage, yes.
So yeah, so I want to look into doing that. I want to try and do maybe another marathon towards maybe in October this year, try and train up for that again. But yeah, I didn't really have anything planned because of going through this injury, and that took a lot of mental kind of fortitude to try and now break through. Or I was able to break through that mental fortitude through this workout to be like, hey, you're actually good to go. You're back in the clear. Like, you can get back into working out and being strong with it.
I only have 2 things for you though, because we've got that client coach kind of relationship a little bit. I think the one thing that definitely helped all 3 of us was we had combined knowledge to pace, nutrition, plan ideas off of each other. How much rest do we need? And like passing all that information off, that definitely helped for one. So training smarter for one.
Yes.
And then 2, recovery.
Yes.
So that's the one thing that kind of bit you in the ass last.
Yes. Yeah. It was me doing the OCR, the Indian mud run, and then 3 days later, then going to go play indoor soccer and not giving myself enough time to recover. That was bad lesson to learn, but lesson learned nonetheless. But the one thing that I did do after this workout was I stretched and I drank a bunch of water. This thing I was drinking 4 of a day, and I'm like, if I want to recover and make sure that my body is good to go, I gotta be drinking water, stretching, going up and just making sure that I stretch this leg out the most. So when I got a lacrosse ball, rolling my feet out, I got like the rolling pin, rolling, and then just stretching. I was probably stretching 3-4 times a day just to make sure that from this recovery, I did Epsom salt bath when I got home, do cold showers. I'm like, I don't ever want to go through that feeling of not being able to do these cool workouts because of an injury. So I made sure that I stretched, and I made sure that I rolled everything out, kept on sucking down water, taking food in. So I knew that was going to help me recover better so that things like this don't happen again. So yes, I have taken that into consideration and realized that the recovery aspect of things is so important, because I do kind of have that mindset where I can go into things with no expectations and just go do them for 20 hours or go do a marathon. And I think now being able to try and take a step back from that now and realize, okay, just because you can doesn't mean you should. There is still an importance of the recovery of this. And doing a workout for 20 hours, definitely learned that there's a lot of recovery after that. So I took about 4 days off and then went and worked out again before, and it was a very light workout. So
How many days off did you take?
I'm trying to remember, because after that was a fog for like 2 days. So I did, on Tuesday, I ran a little bit, and then just like an easy mile.
Okay.
Yeah. At like 5.5 miles per hour.
Okay.
And then, it was probably like 4 days later where I actually got back into like weights training. Cause it was, even 3 days after the fact, I still did have some soreness in like my back and my core and my legs. And so I wanted to make sure that the soreness was more or less gone.
Yeah.
Like, even I felt a little tightness in places, but as long as the soreness was gone, I felt okay to get back into it.
Yeah.
So I did, that one run before getting back in, and then I think 4 days later I really jumped back into it. And my gosh, was I sore. The first I did an upper body weights training day with some core and some cardio for my first day back. I have not been that sore. I think just because we almost like overloaded the circuit, if you will.
Yeah.
And that was crazy.
So the interesting thing with my recovery was muscular and joints and everything like that. Within 48 hours, I was at 100% again. Same thing, like you a little bit like tightness in the back and stuff like that, but muscle and like joint wise, I was perfectly fine after 2 days. Shoot, the next day I still had to work 4 hours and teach.
that's right. You did what you made.
But the one thing I did notice, which I've never had after a workout, was that even just like regular everyday movements, I would get tired quicker. Like my central nervous system got depleted a lot more than what I've been used to. So that was a new one for me. So like taking a nap in the afternoon, for example, like instead of a quick, like, 15 minutes, close my eyes, just zone out, not think about anything, turn into an hour and a half, because my body needed that reset.
Yeah, the thing that hit me on a level that it never has was the sleep deprivation. Like, because even like during the 48, like you can take like little 30-minute, 45-minute like naps and rests and things like that throughout. And like the 24-hour race, I was able to go lay down for an hour and shut my eyes and relax because it's a relay. So there's 3 other people going. But with this, first of all, I don't usually drink a lot of caffeine, like maybe like one day a week.
I remember at Worlds, it was sponsored by Red Bull. That was your really first big weekend.
Yeah, that was not smart. But I think the fact that, 'cause I think I put down 3 energy drinks throughout the process of this event. And on top of that, you've got goo, which sometimes has it, and energy blocks, which sometimes have it, and just a tiny bit. But I think the amount of caffeine that I took in, plus the sleep deprivation, plus my body wanting to go into recovery, all of that was this perfect storm where like I got home. So it ended Saturday at noon. I slept for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, and then I stayed up so that I could try to get back to a normal sleep schedule. But the next day, which was Easter, of course, so like I had 2 different parties to go to. And I remember like, obviously your hormones are all jacked up and everything too. And I was so used to just like, because again, we were around people, but I was so in my own world and in my own head that I felt like I was isolated. And so I go out and I'm about to walk into this party and I feel like I'm about to just start crying for absolutely no reason. And I'm like, do I even go in there or do I just like text the host saying like, oh, sorry, like I'm not coming in. Like it really was like, I stopped and I was like, so I didn't want to like block it because I'm like, well, what if then I go in there and I just start bawling in front of people? So I'm like, okay, like sit with it, like what's going on? And it was just like, okay, your body's that tired, like so just go in there, relax. And the whole day was just this weird, like hypnotic state of, and then on top of that, I had a couple of drinks because it's Easter and you're with family and you're celebrating and all that. Alcohol has never affected me that quickly. It was crazy. But again, it's one of those things. I think back to the book, Living with a SEAL, where David Goggins lived with and trained Jesse Itzler for like a month or something like that. And he walks in and his feet are broken and he's bleeding and he kicks his feet up and someone asks like, do you want like ibuprofen or like a painkiller? And he's like, no, I earned this pain. I want to enjoy it. And it made me think about like, no matter how dysfunctional the rest of Saturday and Sunday was, like to just like sit with the idea that like you really just not actually went to battle, but like in a sense went to battle and you had the people you wanted with you and the challenges and obstacles in front of you, to have the recovery period to just sit with and enjoy the fact that like you just did that was such a cool feeling.
You have to take it in for like, you have to take it for granted, like for gratification almost. Be like, how often are you gonna feel this feeling in your life where it's that kind of like, I'm sore everywhere right now and I'm not really in like conscious as to what's going on. Like you were saying, like very emotionally like weird feeling. I remember I went to Easter the next day too, and I went and saw everybody and I was just kind of like, I was in definitely like not, I wasn't say like a trance, but there was some kind of like, I was off a little bit, just, I don't know, emotionally, I was very, I guess, tired. This is probably one way to put it. Sore, but
I was a little tired
I was
after.
definitely like, there was a gratitude in the way that I felt. There was a, like, my legs, the way that they feel is because I kicked my ass and I pushed myself through this. And like the way that might kind of have like a foggy head right now, like how many times am I going to experience this because of the incredible feat that I just did the day before? So you have to like take into consideration some of the gratification for doing what you did and feeling the way that you feel and being proud of that and being like, a sense of accomplishment. So even though it might suck and you might just start crying in front of everybody in your family, it's a cool thing to be able to take like like something that you should be proud of.
Mhm.
So that's.
So
yeah,
going
that's what I
along
thought.
that whole like emotion, that one
Yes.
specific emotion. So that was me the time that I finished. So like my last farmer's grade, when I set those down, I was fighting back the tears.
Mm.
And there's only been one time in my life that I've done some type of physical feat to the point of like, I physically expended everything I had and I just bawled my eyes out. And that was at NORAM, the North American Championships, when Jake, Ashley and I were on a relay. And I passed that timing chip off to Ashley and we were in third place. And we were fighting for a podium spot against like the best athletes in North America.
Yeah.
And I had given everything I got. I passed it off to her and I just laid on the ground, bawled my eyes out.
Yeah.
This was that only other time that I became close to that. But of course, my wife's there, so I can't cry.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other people.
There's a lot.
There
of
were a
people.
lot of people there.
But no, and I think that's a good point too. Like when you do things like this, it's easy for people who, I mean, I guess just don't do things like this to take it as like bragging or showing off. But really like the immense pride you feel when you accomplish something like this, it's not ego, it's not, I mean, I'm sure there is ego, you know, mixed in the concoction that is completing it. But I think at the root of it, like it's just this intense inner growth feeling that you just can't deny after going through something like that.
Yep. We were saying like, this isn't gonna hit us till tomorrow when we finally kind of are like, holy shit, we just did this. And I think maybe trying to get some sleep and like reset
Yeah.
everything. But I remember when we were both, all of us were done with that. We were all sitting in the cafeteria here, just kind of dazed and confused.
Just like what just happened?
What just happened? But I know that we all said at one point, we're like, tomorrow we're gonna be like, holy shit, what did we just complete? And that gratitude and that sense of accomplishment is gonna be very, very immense the next day, very emotional. And I definitely experienced that. I'm sure you guys did too, and in the group chat, but yeah, it was cool.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Proud of both of you guys, and I
Yeah,
appreciate
too,
you
man.
setting it up.
So question for you guys.
Yes.
Do you still remember the workout?
Yeah.
No.
All right, so we'll roll through it. Let's see if I remember it, and then you'll all hear it too.
All
So you had 4 sections. Each section started with cardio, which you had various options for that.
Yep.
Then there was 4 exercises. So round 1, you did your cardio, and then you had 10 to 20 push-ups, 10 to 20 squat jumps. I don't remember how many overhead presses. I think it was 10 to 20. And then like 10 to however many single leg deadlifts with kettlebells.
Yep.
Hop back on the treadmill or whatever cardio you're doing. We basically stay on the treadmills the whole time. Cardio, then you've got 100 feet of bear crawl.
Yep.
You've got leg raises,
Yep.
10 to 20.
Yep.
You've got burpees, and then you've got ball slams. So that's the second section.
Yep.
And you've got cardio.
Second block was the worst for me.
Yes. It was, yeah.
All the
it was-
Anything where you were on your hands, because I got like floor burn on my hands.
For me, it was the up and down. Because
Okay.
once I got tired, that was just like, I needed a second to just breathe and like
Yeah.
rebalance myself.
All right, so that's the first half. Then the second half, you've got cardio, skaters, so like 10, I think 10 on each side.
Yep.
Then you had pull-ups, which I did rows towards the end because I wasn't able to pull up.
Yeah.
Then you had a wall sit, 1 to 2 minutes, and then you cap that off with dumbbell rows, like 10 to 20. Then the last section, you hop on the treadmill, you hop off the treadmill, you got 20 mountain climbers on each side, and you do 50 feet of broad jumps, which were just comical to watch people do towards the end.
They were buddy hops at the end.
Yeah.
Then you've got 1 minute of a hollow hold, which again, I think turned into a dead bug for all of us in the last few hours. And then you finished off with the farmer's carry for 50, 100 feet, 100 feet.
Yep.
Boom.
Yeah.
So if any of you want to try that workout, if you aren't
So,
very well
one
prepared, I
round,
wouldn't
24 hours.
recommend 24 hours.
So the idea was that one round shouldn't have been, it would have been a workout, but not to the point where you completely depleted.
Mhm.
The challenge was to do multiple rounds.
Yeah.
It's like we had people that did 2 to 4 rounds and they were like, yeah, I'm good after that. Like that's solid. We had people that did 4 on Friday, came back and did 1 on Saturday. We had people that were like, I'm just gonna go for 3-4 hours and just see what happens. Just kind of go that route. But cardio, yeah, it was either running, incline walk, rowing, bike. We had skier that you could have done too.
Yep.
Mhm.
Basically anything that depending on your ability.
People were doing, because we were mostly just on the treadmills,
Yeah.
running, going through the incline, but a lot of people were hopping on the bikes and a lot of people were doing stair steppers and then a lot of people rowing too. So
Yeah.
it was good to see that we
Well,
were dealing.
Because for me, like going in, one of the things for me was like, this is a test to see how ready I am for runs more.
Mhm.
And so that was something I talked to you about, was like, I'm either gonna be running or walking the whole time, but like, it doesn't make sense for me in gearing up for a running race
Right.
to bike and row and do things like
Exactly.
that.
So like for me, the reason I ran the whole time, which the fact that I got 50 miles in 24 hours blew my mind. Well, because also I'm a running coach. I wanted to test myself to see if I'm pushing myself past my limit, am I doing it the right way?
Mhm.
Because the biggest misconception with running is that it's bad for your joints, bad for your knees, bad for your ankles, when in retrospect, bad form was actually bad for you, it's bad for your joints.
Mhm.
Healthy form for running is actually, it improves your bone density, improves your joint health, everything like that. So theoretically, it doesn't matter how fast, how slow, how long you go on the treadmill, running outside, anything like that. If you're doing it the right way, your joints should be fine.
Yep.
So, and that was my biggest testament. Like my knees were perfectly fine the next day.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't have too much of joint pain or anything like that. It was mostly just muscle and mental fatigue.
Yep. But we did it.
We did it.
Yes.
So, yeah, again, I am so proud of you guys for doing this. I'm proud of myself for doing this. I'm glad we did this together. I think this is like the perfect group of people to like support each other and complement each other's mental and physical strengths, and not much else to say.
I remember one time during this workout, I think I would just after every single workout, whether it was like going up and down on the treadmill or doing the kettlebell carries, the farmer carries, I think I was just grunting through it at one point. Oh.
Well, the funny thing too, so I was trying to do updates on my Instagram story, and I actually made a highlight reel on my Instagram so that we kind of see our update throughout the entire time. And you could just see, like, we got a little bit weird at like 3 a.m. My face got skinny and pale, like we were just barely making it, but you could tell that we were just like, we're gonna go.
Mhm.
Yeah, there was, the hours that sucked the most was that 3 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Yep.
That was a time warp into a different dimension on a different plane of life that I don't think that I could have experienced any other way.
Yeah, it was, the best way that I could put it was beautifully intense.
Yeah, and then the cool thing was, and I think we all kind of knew this too, was that 3 to 6 hour was just going to be awful. The 3 to 6 hour in the morning is going to be awful. And then once people started showing back up at 6 a.m., the entire vibe changed. It completely, like, something switched in my head. I saw it in you guys too, where it was just like, okay, there's a different energy.
There was more hope.
There was more hope. The sun was starting to come through the windows, and we're like, okay, this is now, we still have another 6 hours of this, but
6 hours felt like nothing.
right. But it was there was some kind of energy that just got brought back with that. And I know that people started circling around and started joining back in the workouts with us and asking how it's going, which is really cool, which actually really helped. But that was one of my favorite parts, was what, like that 6 o'clock time when people started to show back up and you got through that suck of 3 hours. The energy changed. People started coming and congratulating and talking.
I needed that.
That was, I think, my favorite part of the entire experience was that 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock time zone.
That or the kind member offering to buy us Chick-fil-A.
Twice.
But yeah, so anything else either of you have to throw down? Anything you want to say to the people while you're here?
Outside of the fact of what the challenge was, how we did it, the fact that we did it, one of the biggest challenging things I'd say was watching Mark absolutely crush it and understanding that if I keep his pace, I won't last 24 hours.
Yeah.
Because I knew that his athleticism is at a different level. I mean, he runs 10Ks at a 6:35-minute mile. I mean, I'm not at that point yet. So I can't compare myself to him. I can't try to keep up with him.
Yeah.
And allowing myself that 12 to 13-minute rest in between my rounds of going. First 5-6 hours, I was like, I don't need this.
No.
But I knew I wouldn't even later. So forcing yourself to take that break, allowing yourself to, if you're doing 24 hours and you're tired within the first 5 hours, you definitely did something wrong. And pacing that and understanding that and learning from it is definitely something that
I think it's good that we tried to shoot for 1 hour. 1 hour was was perfect, because
Mm-hmm.
you could do it in 45, 50 minutes. You can then give yourself a 10-minute break to go get some water, wash your face off, do what you
Yeah.
have to do.
Yeah.
And then, get back into it. But
I want to add too, like, relatively speaking, like any endurance challenge you set, if it's something you know is gonna push your endurance, whether it's a mile, a 5K, a 10K, a marathon. If you decide to be like us, 24-hour race, anything like that, like, start slow, like give yourself that time to warm up, enjoy the beginning where like it's actually fun. And then like as you start progressing and like getting into your rhythm and getting warm, then maybe start to amp it up. But like I think it's safe to say for all of us, like the reason we were able to get through the 24 hours was because we realized to let up on the gas a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah.
And to just slam it on the gas like towards the end.
Yeah.
100%.
So that's kind of my advice to anybody. I guess we'll wrap it up here. It's
Good.
been a pleasure. Thank you guys for actually sitting down and chatting about this.
Yep.
For anybody listening, take this as a challenge. Like find something that would be very, 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 very difficult for you to do and freaking knock it out of the park. Like talk to who you need to talk to, like talk to coaches, talk to trainers, read books, listen to podcasts, like do what you need to prep, but don't let yourself quit unless, again, like for safety reasons. But aside from that, don't let yourself quit. So embrace the suck, have fun with the journey. Thank you everybody for listening. As always, I'm just going to do the whole spiel of, if you like this video, if you thought it was interesting, us recapping the race, give this a like button. I'm assuming people have questions about this, whether, you're just questioning our sanity or something about the actual experience. So comment your questions, or you can reach out to me on any type of social media. I'll relay questions to these guys. And if there's someone who's interested in pursuing something that they're hesitant for, show this to them, because I promise you, this was something that we all felt a level of intimidation towards, but hopefully our insights, our mindset, our strategies will give them the inspiration they need to go tackle that. So again, thank you everybody. I appreciate you continuing to tune in, and we will catch you next time. Peace.
Hell yeah, boys. It's cool. First podcast complete. Let's do another crazy challenge.